In this Excel file, I have some data that was extracted with a prot script from two sound files. Every row represents an instance of the trill phoneme for each of the two sound files. And in every row, I have the name of the file, the word that contains the trill phoneme, the number of occlusions, and the duration in milliseconds. I'd like to summarize this data in a table and graph it. In my project folder, I happen to have a template that will make this process a bit faster. I double-click on tablasgegraficos.xlsx to open it, and as you can see here, I have a table and some charts that are connected to this table. Now, I'd like to copy the results from the first file, so I go back and right-click on results.xls on the bottom of the window and click Move or Copy. I will put it in the file called tablasgegraficos.xlsx, and I will check this box to create a copy. And I click OK. And now I can close the file with raw data. Now, I need to plug the data into this table. So let's first calculate the average duration of trills for the first speaker, when the number of occlusions is 0. I'm going to use a formula for a conditional average based on two conditions, which will be the speaker and the number of occlusions. To enter the formula, I'll type =, average ifs, which is a function for an average based on some conditions, open parentheses, and now I need to give this function some arguments. First, I need to specify the range of cells over which I'd like to take the average. I click on Results.xls tab on the bottom of the window to go back to my raw data, and I'll click on column D to select the whole column with duration. Then I type comma, and I see that the next argument of the function is the range of the first criteria, which will be the file name, so I click on column A, comma. Now, I need to specify the criteria itself that Excel will check before including a number in the average. The criteria will be the file name of the first speaker. So I click on ablante.a.wave in the cell A2, comma. I need to do the same for my second criteria, which is the number of occlusions. So first, I specify the range of cells that Excel will check. So I click on column C, comma. And then I need to provide a value that these cells need to satisfy. I go back to Tablas y Gráficos by clicking on the bottom of the window. And now I'd like to click on the cell with the value 0, but it's hidden behind this formula box, so I will manually enter the cell number. I can see that it is in column B and in row 4, so I will type B4. I'll close the parentheses and press Enter. I could enter the same formula in the rest of the cells in this column, but instead I will click on the cell whose value I just calculated. And I will drag this blue square in the bottom right corner of the cell down to fill the formula into the rest of the cells. Now it's time to calculate frequency, and again I'll start with 0 occlusions. So to calculate frequency, I want to count this speaker's number of trill sounds with 0 occlusions and divide it by the total number of trill sounds of this speaker. And once more, I'll use a formula, so I'll start with an equal sign. First, I want to conditionally count the speaker's number of trills with 0 occlusions, so I'll type countifs, which is a function for a conditional count, very similar in spirit to average ifs. Open parentheses. The first criteria will be the speaker, or the name of the sound file, so I'll go back to results.xls and click on column A. Then I'll type comma and click on the file name of the first speaker in order to count only those cells whose value is this file name. I also need to specify the second criteria, which is the number of occlusions. So I type comma, and then select column C as the second criteria range, comma, and I go back to the other spreadsheet. And once again, I need to enter the cell whose value is 0, so I type B4 and close parentheses. So that formula will count the number of rows that have the first speaker's file name as their file name, and 0 as the number of occlusions. To get the frequency, however, I need to divide that number by the total number of trills that that speaker produced. So I'll type a /, which is a synonym for division, and now I need another countifs to count the total number of trills that this particular speaker produced. Open parentheses. I'll click on results.xls on the bottom to go back to the raw data and click on column A, which will be the range of the cells that I'd like to count, comma. And then I'll click on the first speaker's file name so that Excel only counts those cells that have this value. I'll close the parentheses and press Enter. And as I did before, I will drag this blue square down to fill the formula into the rest of the cells. So now this table has some data for the first speaker, and as you can see, they have populated the bar chart and one of the pie charts. And I'll repeat this process for the second speaker. I'll start with the average duration for zero occlusions, equal sign, average ifs, open parentheses. I'll go back to results.xls and then click on column D to select the range of cells whose values I'd like to average, comma. Now I need to specify criteria 1 range, which is the file name, so I click on column A, comma. Now I need to click on a cell with the file name of the second speaker, so let me scroll down about halfway through my data and click on avalanche.wave, which is in fact the name of the sound file for the second speaker, comma. The second criteria will be the number of occlusions, so the range is column C, and I'll click on it, comma. I'll click on Tablas y Gráficos tab on the bottom of the window to go back to the table, and I'll click on the cell with the value 0, which is luckily not hidden this time. I'll close the parentheses and press Enter, and I'll fill the formula into the rest of the cells. Finally, I need the frequency for each number of occlusions for the second speaker. I'll start with 0 occlusions, equal sign, countifs, open parentheses. I'll go to the row data and select column A as criteria 1 range, comma. I'll find the name of the sound file of the second speaker and I'll click on it, comma. Column C will be criteria 2 range, comma. I go back to Tablas y Gráficos and click on the 0 to make it the second criteria. And I close the parentheses. I need to divide this number by the total number of trills that this speaker produced. So / countifs, open parentheses. To count the total number of trills produced by the second speaker, I will only use one criteria, which is the file name. So I go back to the raw data and click on column A to select it as the range, comma. Then I find the name of the second speaker's sound file and click on it, close the parentheses and press Enter. I fill the formula into the rest of the cells in this table, and now we have a bar chart that compares durations and 2 pie charts that show the frequency for each number of occlusions for both speakers.